We're excited that you've joined us here on YouTube for a great message today that the Lord would use to touch your life. We are excited that you could now subscribe and get several messages that will impact your life, whether it is our assistant pastor Pierre Cannings or myself, your pastor Paul Cannings. And we are glad to serve you. We can also continue this process, but not only you subscribing by going to our website. When you go to our website, you could get engaged in our ministries and be able to become engaged in what we're doing here at Living Word Fellowship Church, so we get a chance to be a part of your life to grow you. And not only that, we've got a book that will be able to help you to go from spiritual infancy to spiritual maturity. What are the steps? How do you get there? How do you know you're there? What the fruit of the Spirit looks like? These different things will take place when you get engaged in our website and learn more about us and be able to give. 5 ways to give. When you get to our website, it explains that. And by doing so, we're able to not just touch your life, but the folks at Living Word. We're able to go across the world for the glory of God by those who subscribe, like you will subscribe, in impacting lives. So join us again. As more messages are rolled out, or you go to messages already there, you're able to see God grow in your life, because His Word becomes a viable mechanism to not just know Him, but to experience Him. Come back. Let us grow together.
So convicted about. And I promise you, I've asked my friends, accountability. Last week, I cracked a joke. Kenneth, I can hear you from here. And everybody's like, Pierre, it was just a joke. I get it. But I felt convicted all week. Like God was trying to stop my ignorance. And I just kept going. And all jokes aside, this is a public apology because God has said, Pierre, you were wrong. Because there's one thing about the truth. It's when you're wrong, and when the Holy Spirit says you're wrong, you're wrong. All right? Nobody's told me to say this. I wanted to say this. The jacket joke went too far. And let me explain why before I dive into the text. It's because God gave every speaker, preacher, whatever, personality. But once the personality overrides the beauty of the text and it becomes more about the personality than the scripture itself, then you've made a grave error, because you've switched the attention from the word to the personality. And since it's funny, in that same message, I was talking about that and then made the same error. So how hypocritical was that? So therefore, I appreciate your willingness to allow me to apologize. I know for those who are nosy and weren't here last week, you are now searching through YouTube to go find it. Sure enough, it's deleted. No, I'm just joking. It's not. But my prayer is, and thank you for your grace in allowing me to mature as a preacher. I'm not a perfect preacher. I tell you all that every Sunday. And I'm going to make mistakes along the way, and that was one of them. One of many, as Lord willing, as I continue to be here at Living Word Fellowship Church. So thank you for your grace. And so far, it seems by the crowd, I haven't lost all of y'all. So thank you. Yeah. No need to clap. This is just honesty. I told you I will be honest from the jump. Second thing, I am struggling with this message a lot because it's easy. And I wanted to pick something that would hopefully biblically illustrate what spiritual warfare looks like, but also illustrate what spiritual weapons look like. So since we did a series 2 times over about spiritual weapons, etc., then I thought, why not use a biblical example so that therefore it will become real to you, because you could see somebody use this in real time. So, but it's also convicting to me because I'm going to talk about myself in this message, because remember I always make fun of y'all for those emails that y'all send, like per our last discussion? I want to repent again. I did that this week. So this message is for me. Are you ready? Let us pray. Dearly Father, we thank you so much for your grace, your mercy, that you have allowed us the privilege for us to be in your word. I thank you for forgiveness, that you already knew I was dumb beforehand and you forgave me already. So God, I thank you for that, because I can live in that. I can preach in that. I preach in humility because you humble me. And every time I look at your glory, it's easy to be humble because I recognize your perfection. So God, I thank you for you being perfect and loving imperfect people like myself. So God, I do pray for everyone in the sanctuary that even though they may come thinking they're imperfect, they may come thinking they don't belong here, I will hopefully have illustrated that I don't even belong here, but you chose me. So God, I pray that we will dive into your text, even in its simplicity, that we will dig something out that is new, but not because I'm good at it, but because you will reveal it to their hearts. That just because the story is old doesn't mean the application has been done. So even for me that is insecure about preaching an old text, or let me say a text familiar, I pray that you give me the courage to preach it with boldness. So God, I love you. I thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I'm going to say something, and before I get in trouble again, I can't do it twice, right? I want to say that I understand that this is my way of doing it. I repeat, Pierre's way of doing this. This is how I was raised. I understand that now people, when they go on dates, they go Dutch. I get it. I understand that we have strong, independent women that got their own money. I get it. But I was raised, Pierre, not the Bible. I'm not going to pull text on you. I was raised that we were supposed to pay for the date. My dad said, hey, you need to practice what it is to be a provider. So therefore, if you ain't ready to provide, you ain't ready to date. Hold on, don't look, ladies. This ain't a hater sermon. I'm just hear me out. Let me finish. Look at this. I knew he was going to change it again. He's dumb twice. Let me finish. So we had to wait till I was 16 in order to date because I had to have a job. Because Dad was like, nah, if you're going to start dating, you need to be able spiritually mature enough to date, which we all know can be a mistake. You got to be physically mature enough. And then obviously you need to be what? Financially mature enough, or at least to be able to take her to Chili's. Big time, boy. Look, I was doing things. But over time, because of that practice, my wife, who I've been dating and still dating for 21 years since high school, yeah, I love the fact that now she already knows, even though we share the same bank account. So this is what I love about it. When she knows that I'm going to pay for the date, we're going to pay for the date, whatever, how you want to phrase that, because it's our money. Since we're going to pay for the date together, but it's going to be my debit card to feel special, she doesn't bring what? Her wallet. The only thing my wife brings is a clutch. And y'all know that clutches don't carry anything. They're pointless. They do nothing. But yet we waste our money on them and we overcharge and we still pay for it. Ladies, I don't know that. I don't get it. I don't get it. Let's get off of that. But because she knows, I'm going to get off that. Because she knows that it is provided for, she doesn't need to bring things that would have provisions to it. She only needs to bring what is decorative to the date. When you know God is paying your debt, when you know he is fighting your battles, you are only a decoration to his war. When you know that he already won, and you know that he shares with you your inheritance, so it's our money, you could show up decorative to the date. Now, even though you may be showing up to your war, even though you may be showing up to what looks intimidating, you already know you have your warrior / winner / provider showing up already with the debit card. The problem for many of us is that I wonder if some of us still show up with our wallet because we want to be independent on our date. And the only reason you stressed out about your debt or what you can't afford off the menu and you're thinking about drinking water the whole time is because you forget which inheritance you're digging from. Because if you knew that he was the breadwinner all along, why are you trying to win your own bread? Oh, watch the story that you already know in 1 Samuel chapter 17. I know I said a whole chapter. We're bouncing around this thing. So keep up. Because you know the story already. You got the story that you already know, David and Goliath. And you're like, Pierre, I know the story. I was taught it when I was 4. I get it. It's the easiest story to teach. But watch the difference in how David fights versus history. And while you're turning to 1 Samuel chapter 17, I want to lay this out for you because I hope you didn't know this already. Or if you did, amen, you did your historical background. The Philistines. Before we even get to the Philistines, let us lay out the how. The Philistines been around for a long time. The Philistines were also in the land that was promised. I'm going somewhere with this. And when they were in the land that was promised, when they were given the promised land after crossing the Jordan, they were also given land that was belonging to the Philistines. But because they got lazy and chose not to kick them out, the Philistines remained in their land even though 2 of the towns were supposed to be Israel's. And because they said, we got enough land, we're good, the Philistines were able to settle in and buckle up tight. So while Israel was expanding, guess who else was expanding as well? Philistines. Can I say this before I even dive into the text, that some of us create your own battles because of your lack of obedience? So when I talk about spiritual warfare and you go to your job talking about God got all my battles, also finish your obedience. That incomplete obedience can factor into your spiritual warfare. Because if they would have done what they're told, Philistines wouldn't have been as strong in the first place. But let's continue. The history gets even better. That the Philistines were also having false gods. When they got their promised land and were supposed to be in a spiritual haven, guess what they also did? They started to worship their gods. How do I know that? Go to the book of what? Go to the person of who? Samson. Samson was supposed to do what? Help defeat the Philistines, but instead, he married a Philistine. Now let's keep going. And then they kept worshiping their gods and they kept doing what they were told. So now, guess what? They have lost consecutive battles under Saul, who's present. Some of us are losing battles because we never were obedient in the first place. So even though the sermon is not about that, when I dive deep into this text, when David decides to do the right thing, recognize there were plenty of wrong decisions. Recognize that you will lose your battles because of your lack of obedience and the history in which you set. So therefore, sometimes we keep blaming it on Satan and people, and God is like, no, you've just been incomplete in your obedience. So now you think this way, walk this way, and talk this way. If you keep picking the wrong man, sooner or later, it's going to have a baggage claim. But then you'll blame Satan, like Satan keep bringing me these men that look good, but they ain't good on the inside. No. In order for Satan to bring them, you have to take them. Y'all. In order for you to take it as a man, that means you also had to be looking for it. So because of your history with whatever's been on the screen of your phone, now you're accepting what God never sent because you never were obedient in the first place. And then blame God because of your sexual promiscuity, even though God is saying you never should have done that in the first place. So now you got a little bit of taste. Now you want to be over to your taste rather than obedient to God. Now you blaming God for it. I'm like, wait a second. You let the Philistines live in your place in the first place. You created the false gods that God had to destroy. Let me give you a little more history. Because they took the altar, the Philistines got so courageous, they took the altar, they put it in the place, the altar place of their God. God knocked down their idol twice. What would you think? If you were the Israelites, if God fighting his own battles while sitting in an ark, why wouldn't you choose spiritual battles? That means you weren't even there to knock down the idol. He had to do it himself while you allowed him and his altar to go into captivity. Oh my gosh. But then we have a fight. Now check it. Wouldn't you be bold too? Now hear me out. This is going to make sense. Wouldn't you be bold too if you were the Philistines? You already beat them a couple times. So guess what they doing? They on opposite sides on the mountains talking noise. I hate this about fights, but this is what they were doing. It's like the 2 dudes that stand there and talk but never fight. This is what you ran into. It's 2 dudes gonna be like, yeah, say it. Yeah, you say it. No, and then they start kissing all in each other's faces. It's really weird. If you gonna swing, fam. But no, I would be bold too if I didn't beat you up. Paul deserved the right to be bold in our house because he didn't beat me up 30 times. It's different now. He a pescatarian. I got a chance. So let me lay it out for you, the first point. I know that was a long intro and a long historical background, but we're here. And when we're here, let me lay you out where they are. They didn't even bother fighting armies. They just sent a champion out. This is what I love, because the Philistines fought like this all the time. In verse 4, it says, then a champion. So this is how they win. This is how the world wins. This is how the world continues to boggle your mind, your speculation, and all the things that go on you. They don't even send a whole war. They just send a champion out. The only reason there's somebody on your job that steals your joy, steals everything that you love about what you do, is because there's only one need for one thing to stir your mind. It was a champion. What is a champion? It means that he was a solo fighter that was declared the best fighter in their town, in Philistia. So therefore, guess what? He's saying, I don't even need to fight. One-on-one, let's do it. I love it. Because it's showing the weakness of the Israelites, that you thought that would have made the battle easier. Wouldn't it? Because if you're supposed to win in the first place because you're God as a spiritual victor, why in the world, you're like, man, we don't got to slaughter a whole bunch of people. Whoever from the army, go fight in God's name, you're going to win. But because we look at what we're fixing to talk about, because only we have been taught in our Christianity that we can be intimidated by physicality, watch what happens next. The champion comes. The champion is only somebody that has called out of the ranks. He stood out because he's a great fighter. Now, how many of us are intimidated by the good fighter? I'm not talking about physically anymore. How many of you are intimidated by your boss because that's the champion? How many of you are intimidated by your singleness because that's your champion? How many of you are intimidated by your own personality because you let that champion in your life, meaning that's the one that carries out and calls itself out and you followed it for a long time, meaning you have allowed, there's certain champions that you have allowed in your life just because they're bigger, taller, and scream harder. I'm going to prove it to you. This champion was bold, but I want to first give you out to the physicality in which this is how the world fights. Remember when the scripture read in 2 Corinthians, it said that we don't fight according to the flesh, but watch how the flesh fights. The first thing you're going to see that they call out is a champion that stood 9 foot tall, if not 10 foot tall. How many of you would fight that? Now, we got some dumb people. Hear me out. It says right here, who was 6 cubits in a span. Now, look, man, I know a lot of prideful men in this room. And I'm not going to lie, I know women can fight too. I've seen it. I'm not going to lie, we got to talk about the technique of the fighting. I know now why y'all put it into a ponytail. Because they be pulling hair, man. Oh, let me leave that alone. And I know we got dumb people, but for the most part, how many of us would fight a 10-foot giant? But I'm not just talking about a person who's slow and was like, "Ooh, hey, let's fight." I'm talking about somebody who was supposed to be the best fighter. That means you're fighting a trained fighter who's also 10 foot. And then if you know anything about the Israelite background, they were average height, which is me. I am average height. 5'8", 3/4. Round it up. So not only was this man tall, but then he also had something on. He had a bronze helmet on his head. He was clothed in scale armor, which I'll explain in a second, which weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze. Now, I want you to get this point. The man was all decked out in his armor. The scales were so that he can move freely, meaning he had multiple layers of scales on his armor. So that means he can move and fight. They knew what they were doing. It wasn't a dude walking out there in lion claw talking about let's go to war. No, it's a man that looked like he was supposed to beat you up. Here's the issue. It's how many of us have fallen for people that look like they're supposed to get you? Hear me out. If you were to see your boss and all his credentials and PhDs and doctorates and all this thing, he comes down and tells you what to do even though you know it's a sin, how many of us are willing to say, nah, I ain't going to do it, even though you look the part? How many of us would say, hey, even though this man looks the part, I'm willing to say, man, you got the scales and a 6 spans pack, but you don't fit the criteria. Therefore, you don't fit the physicality of what I need for my spirituality. I know ladies may fit the part, But how many of us are willing to say, even though you fit the physical part and you have the scaled armor, meaning you look like you're supposed to fight, I'm still not going to fall for it because you don't fit the spiritual. I guess what I'm trying to get you to understand is when you're fighting in the world, the flesh matters. Your credentials matters. And no offense, do we live in a sinful world where it does? Absolutely. People like, Pierre, why you get your PhD? So some people can believe me. The paper matter. Am I lying? In 3 weeks, they're going to put a PhD. And guess what? Nobody in the sanctuary going to treat me any different. And my name's still Pierre. But outside in the world we live in, some people going to get the introduction totally different. How are you? I'm well. What's your name? Ken. What's your name? Dr. Cannings. You finna get that work. He also had his helmet. But I want you to notice that he had it on. It's going to make sense in a second. Just keep it there. Then he had his scale armor and his feet and his greaves of legs, all verse 6. He had bronze greaves on his legs and bronze javelins slung between his shoulders. And a shaft of his spear, which like a weaver's beam, and the head of his spear weighed, watch these words, 600 shekels of iron. His shield carrier also walked with him. This man had a man to carry his shield. So sometimes your enemies have somebody with them. Sometimes the peer pressure of you seeing somebody have to drag, think about this man. He's 10 foot. The man carrying his shield probably wasn't. That means his only job was to move with Goliath as he fought. He didn't even have to carry the thing. He was just an armor bearer. But then you got to look at that spear. How many? You know what that really means in our terms for you? 150-pound spear. That means that man was tugging weight with his spear. And he could hold it. That's the crazy thing. He said he had to shrug in between his shoulders. You put 150 pounds on my back. I'm falling back, baby. I'd be like, let's fight. I ain't got it. I ain't got it. I'm supposed to lose. This man's carrying it and walking and talking noise at the same time. How do you know that? Watch what else happens. He had the biggest weapon, but then in verse 8, this man starts yelling at you. He stood and he shouted to the ranks of Israel and said to them, why do you come out to draw in the battle array? Am I not the Philistine and the servants of Saul, the king? Choose a man for yourself and let him come down to me. This man bold. He said, get yours. Let's go. I'm only asking for one. Aren't y'all supposed to be, ain't I supposed to be the servant of Saul? See, he basically calling out the fact that Saul was supposed to be his king. Hey, he ain't my king, bring yours. You know what's funny about people? We often listen to the loudest in our lives. Hear me out. The person that told you you don't look good or you shouldn't be confident. The world that screams what women's bodies are supposed to look like. The world that screams at you that your complexion is too dark. The world that screams at you saying you're supposed to look like this, walk like this. The world that screams that men are supposed to act like this with multiple different women. The world that screams and shouts is the one who often gets heard. But let's not talk about the fact that we often fall for shouting even in our own arguments. How many of us are guilty that if we get louder, we think we won? So now we have a shouting match and no communication. So often in our world, the shouting works. So not only does the physicality matter, not only does the champion of our lives and our lives that get us matter, then also the person who is the loudest, but watch these next word, is the most persistent in how loud they are. Because I'm going to prove it to you. Not only was he loud, he's standing, he's coming, but watch what this happens right here in verse 16. The Philistine came forward morning and evening. 40 days he took his stand. There's two things you got to know about that text. First one, that means for 40 days he said the same thing, shouting at the top of his lungs, send someone. But that also means for 40 days, they didn't do nothing. You know why some of us have never, and someone say something, it's going to be not, it's me. You know why some of us struggle? It's because the loudest person has made you too quiet. And we allow people to shout in our lives that don't belong. For 40 days, we let people tell us who we are and what we're supposed to be and what we deserve. For 40 days, you have let people, your father, your mother, people that have scarred you, caused childhood traumas in your life, scream to you, this is who you are. And I'm telling you today that you have let it happen way too long. The moment somebody gets to talk about your God, the moment that somebody opens up their mouth and gets to talk noise about not just who you are, but who God created, they need to be silenced, and you have to be ready for spiritual warfare. 40 days is way too long, but I have to tell you the why. The why matters because it's the only way to transition. How many of you fellas, if you do have my way of paying for the date, I'm not saying every man should, remember. And ladies, don't forget, sometimes it is good to spoil your man, take him out there, let him know. Let him know, you know what I'm saying? Get him a cheeseburger. Appreciate the simple things in life. You don't have to give him a back rub, but just tap his back twice, you know what I'm saying? Good job. Ain't nothing wrong. Buy him a Shirley Temple. I don't know, root beer. So I'm not saying that, but how many fellas, if you do the way I do dates, how many of you ever been nervous? Don't raise your hand, just blink twice. Because, not my wife. Let me fix that quick. Not Monica. Some women look at the menu for opportunity. Some women look at the menu knowing who they're dating or married to. If you know we broke, stay your behind on the appetizer side of the menu. If I order an appetizer for a meal, you's ordering an appetizer for a meal. But fellas, if you also smart, what do? You let her order first. He got me. Wayne got me. Because if she order first, you already know what's in your bank account, don't you, fellas? How many of us check before we go out? You know you got 49.87. You also know that what she just ordered was $27. So now you can reevaluate what you order. And the first thing, fellas, say it with me. What do you say when you're embarrassed? Man, I ate before I got here, girl. Go ahead. Took my mom out. Always got to spend time with the moms. See, like, what you gonna eat? Salad. Knowing you hungry, bro, and she be just eating her food right in front of you. And what makes it worse is she be like, I don't even know if I'm gonna finish this. You better finish this joint. I am starving. I'm finna go home to a bologna sandwich. I guess I'll just take it home, or better yet, let's just leave it here. It wasn't that good. You better take that joint. Because as soon as she how many of those? This is what happens, right? This is the moment of truth, y'all. You've done everything you can to do all the math in your head. You can't pull out your phone, you'll tell. Some of us good with math. If you've been broke like me, you know how to count. And this is the moment of truth, especially if they give you the bill that open up like this. Boy, you gotta act like you got money, so you can't let it sit on the table too long, fam. I'm telling you. You gotta grab it first like you're confident. $47.56. Yes, Lord. I got you, boo. It's just us, me and you, quality time. You knew you made it. But because you were insecure, it made you nervous. Because you didn't know what you could afford because you've been doing it all on your own, you were nervous. Because you thought you had to have your own and you had to be ready for it, you were nervous. But I can tell you this, and I hope you understand, many of us open up our own conflict because we're nervous because we're going to do it in our own way. Some of us open up the bill knowing we ain't have the spiritual fortitude to pay it. Some of us ain't been in our word all week, ain't prayed, ain't done nothing. And then you get to your first conflict at the end of a long week and your wife wants all of your attention and you keep giving her the 47.89 type of work. Because you never built up the spiritual savings account to be able to like, hey, baby, even if you go over, I'm going to transfer the money over. because I got a savings with God. I've been in the reservoir with God. I can fight this with God. But some of us who choose to fight according to our flesh, you would have the same reaction as the Israelites, but not just the Israelites, the king himself. Watch the wording. It gets even better. Watch verse 11. And 11 says, when Saul and, watch these words, all of Israel, not just the soldiers, not just David's brothers, everybody was scared. Because if you send one out and you lose, you got to become their servants. If you send one out and you lose, all of Israel will be taken over. So guess what? They saw Goliath and they all got scared. Wouldn't you get scared if you just finished losing over and over again? So if you keep getting the demotion over and over again, sooner or later you're going to be scared to ask for a raise, ain't you? Because you forgot who was the person who's giving your provisions in the first place. If you keep thinking, if I work harder, go into overtime, get more money, I'm going to be where I want to be, then sooner or later when you don't get what you want, you start saying, well, God, I'm not going to fight no more because we're all scared. It says they were dismayed. I'm going to break that word down. And they were greatly afraid. But it all started with Saul. The king's job was supposed to lead without fear. The king's job also lets you know that he was just as scared as everybody else. Fellas, I'm going to talk to you for a second. I'm not saying you're a king and ladies can be queens. I get it. But some of y'all scared to leave your house because you have no spiritual reservoir to pull from. You know you haven't been leading according to the word of God. So when you decide to lead, finally, the reservoir is gone. Saul had nothing to go back to. He just lost because he let idols all over his nation. He wasn't leading well, so when it's time to lead again, guess what? He can't. So now he just as scared as everybody else because his leadership made them lose in the first place. I would be nervous too, ladies and gentlemen. If you have allowed sin and idols into your life and now you're trying to call upon the name last minute. Because at that point, you knew you didn't fight God's way the whole time. Saul should be nervous. But the word he says right here is greatly dismayed. Read it with me, verse 11. It repeats itself. It says they were dismayed and greatly afraid. The word dismayed simply means broken into pieces. So let me stop for a second. How many of y'all came to church feeling like you're broken into pieces because you keep losing? Every day you wake up, you feel like you're taking another L. Every day you wake up in your life, you feel like God is just consistently giving me L's. Every day you wake up like, man, I'm broken. I got nothing left. I'm broken into pieces. The last ex-boyfriend, the last girlfriend, this person broke me. This person broke me. I'm shattered. Because after a while, guess what starts to win in your life? The giant. So then I have to stop and ask and say, which giant breaks you? What thing in your life makes you insecure? What thing in your life makes you greatly afraid and petrified of the results? What thing in your life have you made a giant even though it's only 5'9"? What person, what job, what thing have you allowed? What battles have you been fighting on your own only to break yourself into pieces? How many men and how many women are frustrated with their singleness and I'm going to settle for anything because I'm broken? Anybody who thinks they're going to put my life back together, I'm going to take them. I don't want God right now. I just want somebody who makes me feel like I'm not broken. I just want something. So if it's money, I'm going to put all of it in money. If it's clothes, I'm going to make myself feel put together even though I'm broken on the inside. I'm going to do something that covers up for the fact that I got giants that are winning in my life, that are shouting at me every day, telling me they fixing to whoop my tail. And matter of fact, they already did 5 times, and I don't believe God's going to do something different. How many of y'all are like, God, you can't win because I kept losing, but you don't realize the whole time it was on you. But now God is saying, let me send you another champion. Oh, I told you the story gets better. They were greatly afraid, but now watch on top of this. Watch, stay with me, verse 24. It says this, not only were they afraid, when all the men of Israel saw the man, they fled from him. They ran. Now, I don't even know how you run where you're on 2 opposite sides of the valley, which is really weird. You already had space. It's the fact that when he got closer, you ran further. So then I have to ask a question. What are you running from? Because that'll tell me what your Goliath is. And you know what? I'm going to speak from my heart, and hopefully you don't take it the wrong way. You know, one thing I hate is conflict. I'm the person who overthinks conflict and rather not get into conflict, so I'll find ways around it. I'm the guy who will find words just to make sure I downplay the situation, even though I'm hurting in my own bedroom and prayer life. I'm the one who'll let you get away with murder while I suffer. I'm just being honest. Because I don't like conflict. So if you can walk away feeling good and I walk away feeling like trash, that's good enough for me as long as I don't got to be in conflict with you. And if I choose, I'll pick up your phone call. I'll play like everything's okay. But in reality, I'm hurting on the inside every time I hear the word hello. Why? Because you hurt me and I never let go of it because I'm not going to solve it. I wonder how many of y'all run just like me. That your marriage would be better if you chose to say the hard stuff in love and kindness, but you choose to hide it because you already know what you think is going to happen because last time you tried to fight that battle, y'all both lost. So I'm not going to fix nothing. We're going to come home, play roommate, and go to bed. We're going to come home, go to work, get the money, put it on the check, put it on the table. I'm going to be a provider because that's all you want me for anyways. You ain't solved jack. What makes you run? That's your Goliath. What makes you back up? What emotion in your life have you not solved? What thing, what idol in your life makes you say, I'm good? What person in your life, every time they come around the table, you fly and away from the table? Every time the situation comes, you out. Every time the email comes, you out. And some of us, let me get it the right way, because fleeing doesn't necessarily mean running. Fleeing can mean you fight unfairly because you don't know how to fight good in the first place. That some of us have said, you know what, my running is a way to preserve. And you have used that excuse for so long, even though it's broken you into pieces. I wonder how many of the people in the sanctuary are broken right now, but look good because they learned how to run away while keeping all their clothes looking the same. You've ran from church. You've ran from people. You've ran from conflict. You've ran from job to job to job, relationship to relationship. But you will refuse to admit that you're broken. You're only running because you're broken. Because the word's repeated. They ran because they were what? Afraid and greatly dismayed. That's why many of us are run, because our brokenness can't make us whole again. The only man who can is a man who died to put you back together. We have blamed everybody. You're running out of people to blame now. You just scroll through your phone, pick a contact, and be like, that's him. Fix it. But I'm fixing to tell you how. I want you to know the how. Because right here in verse 25, I ain't got time for that one. But you know how Saul tried to fix it? Pay somebody to do it. Not the king. The king didn't go out to fight, y'all. He was sitting. And you know how we know where he was sitting? He wasn't even close, because David had to go what? Find him. Y'all with me? David had to be like, all right, where's Saul? Because guess who was talking? The brothers were talking. They was like, hey, man, I heard he going to pay everybody with riches and his daughter. But watch what. They talking, but ain't nobody moving. That's the funny thing about it. How many people got people in their life that talk about the solution, don't do nothing with it? No offense. I love y'all, but come on, man. This church, man, it got its problems, man. Well, then do something about it. You over here talking about it. Do something. I'm going to leave that on. Let's leave it there. So they over there talking. Ooh, Saul going to give us all the riches and he going to give us his daughter. I heard about this daughter. Because if I marry Saul's daughter, then I become a what? I become a prince. You would have thought somebody would have been like, you know what? I'll die for that. I'll bite his ankles for that. Either that or they didn't like her. I don't know. Pick it, whatever. But they didn't go. They didn't go. David overhears the conversation as his brothers get frustrated with him. And David's like, what'd you say? But David's reasoning wasn't to get the daughter, but how many of y'all have paid people to fix your problems? And I'm finna lay this out for you real quick. I am a proponent of therapy and counseling. I think people should be going to therapy and counseling. But I got news for you while you go. Please go. A therapist can't put your life back together. It can only show you what is broken. It can give you techniques to how to piece your life back together. But some of us are paying out hundreds of dollars what God can do. So Saul was like, hey, therapist, fix that. I'm out. And I'm like, I get it. please go, because some of us have so much childhood trauma, we don't even know how to sort through it. So please go, because somebody's going to help you sort through everything you've been through. I'm not saying nothing. Just make sure it's very clear. But some of us have been paying people thinking they're going to fix it when at the end of the day, it's you and God. At the end of the day, I'm not saying the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, it's going to be between you and God. Saul was like, somebody else will fix it. I just pay for it. Some of us got money, think that's going to solve problems. Isn't it? People that got money and power, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. People that got money and power keep paying people to fix their problems. Saul was like, well, shoot, I'll just use my money and power then. Somebody will jump. Nobody did. Then all of a sudden, that's how the world fixes problems, y'all. They get scared, they run, and they get dismayed. And then they try to fix it with money and pleasure. Yeah? You got the four things, but watch what David comes and do, because this man finna spit some bars. He says this, that's how they fight. This is how I fight. Verse 26 picks up. Then David spoke to the men who were standing by him, saying, what will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For this, watch these words, for who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should taunt the armies, watch these next couple words, of the living God? This is what I love about David. David was like, what they gonna do? Because the last time I checked, an uncircumcised Philistine can't taunt a living God. The last time I checked, my husband or my wife, no matter how much they taunt me, can't challenge the living God. The last time I checked, my singleness cannot challenge a living God. The last time I checked, these uncircumcised ways can't challenge a God who is with the circumcised. See, the first thing you have to understand why he put some context on the Philistine. He didn't talk about, watch these words. This is what I love about David. This is why I'm tired, and me, Pierre Cannings, is tired of politically fighting battles. I told y'all I was in an email battle earlier this week. I'm the fastest email in the world. And I went for it. I thought I was going to win. And I'm telling you, it doesn't work. Watch. This man doesn't mention what? Height, weight, spear, loud, 40 days. He said, let's get to work, because that man right there is uncircumcised. Last time I checked, I'm circumcised. And if I'm circumcised, guess what that means? I got a covenant with the living God, and nobody's supposed to taunt the living God, because if I look through history, when people taunt a living God, people fall down. Oh, but this one stings. If you start making yourself the living God, they can taunt you all day long. Because last time I checked, you ain't God. So if you get mad, talking about God defend me now, it's like, no, you made yourself God. So I want to make sure I put some corners on this joint. If you've made your emotions and your individuality and who you are a God, that means when people taunt you, you say, well, God, go handle it. I'm like, nah. He was taunting the covenant. The covenant is God's promises to you. The covenant is God saying, you're my people. So good news is that when you're circumcised, you were his people. That means if you are circumcised, that means nobody's allowed to beat you or defeat you if you just put your hands down. To me, it's like going into a boxing match just like this. My brother used to teach me that all the time. He said, Pierre, don't ever, I thought I was going to get in a fight one day. My dad doesn't know. Paul started giving me boxing advice. He knew, he saw the one time I did swing, and it was a little bit over the top, a little bit of roundabout. And Paul was like, I'm going to warn you, Pierre, you're fixing to go to high school. I'm not going to lie, I hate talking to my brother like this. My brother can swing. That's why he don't, anyways. And he was like, Pierre, I'm going to warn you. He said, anybody who's cool before a fight can fight. He said, anybody who got their hands down because like they know how to dodge your swing, fought before. And he said, anybody who don't talk, be scared. So you know what I did? I'm smart. Hold on. Because I don't want y'all to know it and then somebody beats me up in the parking lot. Just wait a second. Finna give away my secret. I took the pointers, and instead of trying to get in a fight, I just did what he said so that hopefully nobody fight me. See, like, Pierre, shut up. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I see you. All the while I'm backing up slow. Yeah. Out, gone. Can't catch me. You know why he puts the word living in front of it, though? Because God ain't dead. If God was sitting on his throne, sleep, then I'd be like, I can understand why y'all defending yourselves. If God only defended the pastor, then I'd be like, well, bet. You have a right to defend yourself. But if God is defending every single person in the room and never sleeps and never slumbers, and if God has shown you throughout history that he is the greatest defender. Remember Jericho? They didn't even fight. Them jokers walked around and blew a trumpet and yelled. If God has shown you Jericho, God has shown you all the wars you won to get the promised land, and he showed you that the covenant people always win, and that means he's still living. The same God in the past is the same God today. And then he wins the biggest war of all when he sends his son to die on the cross by showing you I'm still living, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to live forever. You get the same life just because I'm living. I give you life. And if he does that, sooner or later, you would start to think like, man, I ain't got to fight nobody. Why would I fight when my living God fights for me? He ain't dormant. He ain't sleep. So therefore, if he ain't dormant and he ain't sleep, you go to sleep. Why are you up worried about it? Why are you up speculating? Why are you waking up in the morning, the first thing you think about is the email you can send? Why in the world are you up searching on Instagram, slipping in people's DMs trying to get it? Why in the world do you keep solving your own problems if you know your God is living? You know why? Because some of us treat God like he's dead. And just because he don't move as fast as you want him to move, some of us move for him. Just because you move fast don't mean you're moving. I've seen a lot of dumb people go fast. Moving on. Watch what happens next, and I got to conclude. I want to read these verses to you. Verse 32, now he's talking to Saul. Saul sent for him. Verse 32, David said to the king. Now remember, what was David? Who was David? David was a shepherd. He was the last born son. That means this man shouldn't be talking to no king. He has no right. But he's the only one that said, I'll fight. The fact that you would now, watch these words, I don't have time for the whole story. Saul already knew he didn't look like he was supposed to be fighting nobody. Because what does he call him? In a couple verses later, he says, you just a youth. What are you doing here? Which is hilarious because then Saul then lets him fight. But that's not the point. Saul had to be scared. You see a little kid walk to you like, I'm ready. You're like, go ahead. He says this, verse 32, let no man's heart fail on account of him. Your heart is where your emotions are. It's where your thoughts are. It is where you have the emotional capacity from. So he's saying, don't let your heart fail because of a man. So then I look at some of us in the sanctuary, and how many of us need to be told today, like I am David, and say, how many of us have let our hearts fail because of a man? How many of us have let a situation kill your heart? How many of us have let your emotions die? How many of us are not the same woman or man? How many of us are not the same church member you used to be? All because of a him. So then let me say this verse to you that you need to read on your own time if you have let your emotions and your heart fail. How many of you's heart ain't the same? It's hard, or you don't want to let nobody in. Your walls are up. You found ways to protect your heart. But if God is your living God, then you don't need to protect what God gave to give to somebody else. I wonder how many people ain't blessed because your heart is too hard to bless somebody. That you find ways to guard your heart so nobody gets what they deserve from your heart. That husband and wives are struggling because you let your heart fail. But your heart is what you need. So let me read this verse over you. For those who need to cry and weep, just know this verse is real. Let no man's heart fail on the account of him. Read it again. Let no man's heart fail on the account of him. How many of you need to hear that for your circumstances, for your jobs, for your marriages, for your singleness, for your life, for what you do? Let your heart not fail. You're tired, you're broken, you fleeing, you're running, you're talking, you ain't doing nothing. You come to church, talk about it, go home. I ain't going to give myself up too much, but let me get close because there's 2 more verses I got to read and I'll be over. I still go out with my dad. I love hanging out with him. Now, my mom is different. I still choose, when I go out, I want to take on a date. It's different. But my dad goes out. I'm still his son. And I'm going to use it against him. Hear me out. Because he be claiming it all over the place. Because he want me to text him when I land, text him when I make it to the hotel. And he says, I can't take away the fact that you will always be my son. So I said, watch this. Big bed. So when we go out to eat father-son time, son, I leave my wallet in the car. You said son. The last time I checked, father's supposed to provide for the son. Because when the father has a reservoir, like my daddy, I'm not talking about his riches, I'm talking about his wisdom. I can sit at the table and glean all day. Sometimes a little too long, but good. But when he puts down the card, I just sit there and look at it. When the waiter puts it down, I got it. I know you did. I didn't even bring my wallet. Because when daddy got it, a son and daughter can relax. Because when my daddy got it, y'all can relax. When the bill comes, I know you got it. I didn't even bring my wallet to the store. How many of you keep bringing your wallet like God gonna let you pay? He already showed you he paid for everything, but you keep putting in your own wallet, making your wallet be all thick just because you walked in thinking you could provide for yourself. Sit down with your daddy and glean some wisdom. But watch David as I conclude. Then David said to the Philistine, now he out to fight. I love David. We could talk about the stones all day and how he got to the creek and all this joint. But watch what this man start talking noise. You come to me with a sword, a spear. Sorry, verse 45. A sword, a spear, and a javelin? But I come. Oh, David could talk some noise. This preaches all by itself, ladies and gentlemen. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts. That means he's the Lord of all angels. He got a heavenly host of them. So you can come with your physical weapons. You can even fight me according to your flesh. But he didn't claim what he came with was 5 smooth stones. You notice he ain't talk about it. Because that's not what he came to fight with. He came to fight because he knew you was talking noise about my God. See, that's the funny thing about people. We'll defend our honor, our integrity, and everything else, but won't defend God. See, you got to start learning which battles you want to fight in the first place. Them talking about your hair texture, that's their problem. Them talking about our skin tone, that's their problem. Them talking about how you look, that's their problem. But when you talk about my God, though, Like when we get to a point where you start, your God ain't real, your God is fake, your God is this. Oh, whoa, slow down. I got a living God I'm going to fight for. The problem with people is because we take ourselves so serious and we're so prideful that somebody's saying the smallest thing about what they think about us that don't matter, we get all riled up about. But let somebody talk about God on Twitter. We were like, I guess he got a point. No. We care about more of our own than we care about the fight of God. Because when you care about the fight of God, can you picture David just starting to rile that thing up? He just slowly, like I told you, my brother, he just slowly reaches in his pocket. Slowly starts putting it in the sling, and this man just like this. Fam, who you talk about? I mean, you could talk all day. I see all the weapons you got. You're not going to get close to me with that thing. Did I tell you what he said beforehand? I forgot. This man said not only is he going to kill Goliath, he's going to chop off his head. Now picture that. Because David didn't bring a sword. So that means this man believed he could pick up this other man's sword. That's bold. I don't need an email. Because the last time I checked, my guy's going to win the war anyways while I swing this swing around. But I'm going to get back to my point because I want to finish that verse and I got to get done. And it says, and you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of all armies of Israel. Who's the God? The reason why the Israelites were scared because they forgot who's the God, who's the commander of the army, whom you have taunted. Watch what he says next, and that's the only thing I'm going to read. This day, not 40 days. Have you noticed it didn't take them 40 days to get there? Everybody else is talking about God, talking about things, talking about how they're going to win, talking about how they're scared. You notice David took hours to make the decision whether he was going to fight or not? It don't take you time to decide whether you're going to defend our God or not, or let him defend himself. Watch this. The Lord will deliver you into my hands. Who's going to deliver? Your email's going to deliver? Your next DM going to deliver? Your next profile pic going to deliver? When you change your hair, is that going to deliver? Let me stop. When you get your new boo. When you go on a date with your wife and you spend more money. Are any of these things going to deliver? No. The Lord will deliver. But watch, he says, into my hands. And I will strike you down. This man talking noise now. And I'm going to strike you down. And then I'm going to cut off your head. That's a cold-blooded brother. And all of a sudden, he finishes winding that thing up. Remember I told you had a helmet on? Remember I told you had a shield guy? Remember I told you had things that looked like shells that were scales all over his body so he could move fast? Did he move? Remember my brother's advice? He said, don't let them swing first. This man didn't even give him a chance. He told him why he was going to kill him, then told him how he's going to kill him, and then let that rock go. And then when he was done, he cut the dude's head off. Now, all of Israel rejoiced. But it's only because one man chose to fight a spiritual war where everybody else chose to choose a physical war. One man. So therefore, I look at you in this room, if you're broken, and I say it only takes one person to choose to fight the right way. It takes one person to fix a marriage. It takes one person to fix your singleness. That's just you. It takes one person to stand up at this church and pick up a ministry that's falling apart. It takes one person to stand up to your friends that are saying God isn't real. It takes one person to change a family reunion. So go to your family reunion and start winding that thing up. We're not going to cut off nobody's head. I don't want to see you on the news. No, I don't swing. But you're winding up your defense of the gospel because you have a living God. So the tides have shifted now. I got some little brothers in the church that I love, and they're genuine brothers. But I'm now the old guy. I'm like the middle child, J. Cole. And I'm sitting there. Oh, only they got it. And now I got little brothers. And it's funny, man. It's weird. because now that means I'm old. But every time I always take them out to eat, we do discipleship. Every time I take them out to eat, I ain't going to say two guys that we did it last Thursday. You know what I noticed? They always get behind me in line. They always get in front of me. They order, and then they just start talking to me. They never tap their pockets to fake it. They never be like, man, forgot it. Nothing. They just slowly back away from the register. And they start talking to each other. And I take my card, look back, and I pay for the food. It's not because I'm rich. It's because they know they got a big brother. This is what I need y'all to do from this point forward. I need you to pull up to the register, order with confidence, and then get behind God. That's all I need you to do. Stop fighting. Stop talking to the cashier. Stop presenting your coupons. Stop telling what you thought it was. Because God's going to come right behind you. He's going to put in his card. He's going to pay for it all and still fellowship with people who knew he was going to pay. So get in the back and let God pay. I wish that many of y'all, for those who've been trying to go to the register yourself today, for those who are looking at your own bank account, thinking if you can afford it, for those who are thinking in their own spiritual reservoir, physical repertoire, all the things that you think matter in this world, they don't. I've seen so many women try to change their physical appearance because they think that's what they have to fight with. That is flesh. I've seen so many men go to the gym thinking they got to change their physical appearance. That's just flesh. I've seen so many people thinking the next job will make them feel better. That's just flesh. Today is your day to say, hey, my singleness is yours, God. God, this marriage is yours. I'm going to do the right thing. It's yours. I ordered what I think I can order. This job, it's yours. No more emails. I'm done. Today is your day. Let us pray.
I pray that this message touched your life in a powerful way, because this is what we're after. This is what we're focused on. That the message would not just impact your mind, but your heart, so that you get to know Christ intimately. He becomes somebody you experience, not just know about. And that's why we want you to subscribe. We want you to subscribe because when you subscribe, when new messages come, it gives you a signal. And therefore you know how to come back on, and we grow together powerfully. You go to our website, because when you do, you can find out about the book, Disciples in the Making. When that happens, it teaches you how to go from spiritual infancy to spiritual maturity and gives you all the steps to make that happen. So go on to our website and also give to this ministry. When you do, we're able to touch more lives all around the world that tune into this ministry for the glory of God. So you're able to make a definite impact that will change lives for God's glory. So subscribe. That way you continue to be involved and be a part of what God is doing, not just here at Living Room, but all around the world. You touch lives. God bless you. Stay focused.